Welcome to the How to Succeed podcast, the show that helps you get to the top and stay there. This is How to Succeed at Account-Based Marketing at Any Size. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is Kerri Martinek, Head of Global Brand and Marketing at Sandler. She's been here for the last 3 years, and she presented this topic at last year's Sandler Summit. So I'm excited to jump into this, and if you haven't checked out the Sandler Summit, go to sandler.com/summit and register for this year's event, so you get to see all these cool topics like this. Kerri, welcome to the show. How are things?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I am excited to talk about account-based marketing today.
Yeah, any size. So what is account-based marketing? Let's start there in case people haven't heard this before.
Sure. So account-based marketing is really focusing your marketing efforts on an entire account versus an individual. It's looking at things like buyer intent and trying to meet the buyer where they are in their journey. Traditionally, I think it's been an enterprise type play because maybe small businesses feel like they don't have the resources to execute on this type of marketing. However, I think it's more important for small businesses to be able to do that because it helps them to better qualify their leads, have the right conversations with the right people at the right time, and really prioritize who they're talking to throughout their day. So it's a great strategy. And then I'm going to share some simple ways for them to implement that as part of our conversation today.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing for small businesses and especially B2B, right, is what we're talking about here, that if you're targeting another business, your buyer is not one person anymore. Right. It's a group of people. So we need to now track in our CRM and in our marketing what all of those people are doing when they're coming to your website, when they're taking action, they're downloading a white paper or something like that. So we know what's important to who and who's taking action when, and we can market to an entire prospect company instead of just an individual. Did I get it right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mike. What we're hearing is from places like Gartner that the typical buying committee is anywhere from 14 to 20 people. So you really are talking to a large group of people, especially in this virtual world. It may not be that large if you're on the smaller side, but certainly when you're talking about enterprise, your buying committees are going to be large. Alongside of that, also that kind of serves as a good reason for starting ABM is that marketing budgets have really been reduced over time. So another Gartner statistic is we've gone from maybe 11% of revenue, depending on your industry, down to post-pandemic 7 to 9% of revenue, maybe even less. So marketers are having to do more with less money. So no more can you just do that spray and pray strategy where you spend as much media as you possibly can, hit everybody you possibly can. You really need to be more strategic in how you're spending your marketing dollars. And this was another reason why, in terms of Sandler's decision-making, why we decided to focus more on the ABM type strategies.
So when we think about attitude here, we've mentioned several already that this is something you should be doing. It's a return on investment and effectiveness of our marketing campaign. Can you think of any other myths or misconceptions that people have when they think about ABM right off the bat that we should clear up?
Well, first, that it's only for large organizations because it is, there are platforms out there that are really comprehensive. Sandler uses one, 6 Sense. It's really hard to operationalize, to implement, especially if you're small. So I think what maybe is a myth is that you can't do it. There aren't tools for you. When there are tools you may already have. A couple that I'll talk about later is a Zoom Info. A lot of people have Zoom Info or HubSpot. There are ways you can implement ABM strategies without having to invest in those giant tools. I think another attitude that has been challenging to overcome is the mindset of that one-to-one lead. So sales over time, for the longest time, has really been focused on who's the person I call, who's the contact, who do I have that relationship with, when really you need to expand that more to a full account. I'd say one more thing about that. It's a little bit of the paradox of ABM in that while you are expanding to an account, you're also needing to create personalized buyer experiences. So there are two opposite things happening there that you need to be able to think about at the same time. And that can be a challenge for people to really wrap their brain around that a little bit.
Yeah, I think this will take us to the behavior bucket a little bit, but I'm also wondering about these target accounts, where they come from and how we get this list. Because I know with Sandler, we even struggled with, creating this dream list of like, oh, here's all the Fortune 500 companies we want to work with, Apple and Pepsi and, all of these versus like, this is really an ideal client mix of ours. These are the people that we call on. So where do these accounts that we're going to target come from most of the time?
That's a great question. I think there are two separate pieces there. I think, like you mentioned, there are your dream accounts, which you're always going to have, and you should have. But then what you should also be doing is thinking about your ideal client profile. So think about your business and what does the ideal client look like for you? Additionally, think about who's already visiting your website, who's already taking the time to come learn more about you. One key way to do that is to be able to de-anonymize your web traffic. And again, I'll go back to simple tools like a HubSpot, or if you have ZoomInfo websites, try to take a look at who's already visiting your site and engaging with your content or your message or what you're selling, and really add those, start to develop that list, start to segment that list as a starting point for yourself. And I think you'll be surprised to see how quickly that list can grow over time if you start to make a genuine effort to track that.
Nice. Now, when we talk about these different strategies here, doing the right thing at the right time, they're probably a little bit different if you have a $1 million marketing budget than if you're a small business trying to do it. So where should we start when thinking about ABM?
So I think one of the key things about ABM, and perhaps another, not to go back to attitude, but we hear that buyers are doing 72% of their research before they even get to a salesperson. So what does that mean? That means that they're further down the funnel by the time they get to you. So with ABM, what you're doing is you're looking at awareness, consideration, decision, and then purchase. You're reaching the buyer where they are in their journey. So if they're coming to your website when they've already done 72% of the research, you want to be able to be right there at that time, talking to the right person, having the right decision, talking to the right person with the right conversation at the right time, because those are going to be your prospects that you need to talk to and will be more likely to, we'll call buyer intent, more likely to buy what you're offering. So I think the starting point needs to be further down the funnel. Don't spend your time at awareness. You can put materials out there. You obviously want to keep people entering into your pipeline, but you're better off as a salesperson prioritizing your leads that are further down your funnel.
I like that. That makes a ton of sense. Now, what about some of these different actions again that we're going to do? So we start with the web traffic. How are we marketing to these people? I'm assuming everybody's using a ton of channels these days, from your email marketing list to having BDRs reach out to retargeting on Facebook ads and LinkedIn and stuff. What does it actually look like? What do we do in account-based marketing?
So the key is once you do have your target list, once they've engaged and you've seen a specific level of engagement, I think it's important to use your tools that help you to automate the process. So as a salesperson or even a marketer, you don't have a whole lot of time to spend your whole day doing the chasing, the one-off chasing. So if you can use a tool like HubSpot that can do a lot of that automation for you, again, even getting back to that personalization. So the marketing team here at Sandler just had the opportunity to go to HubSpot Inbound, and we learned a lot about some of the new AI tools that HubSpot has. So their Breeze Intelligence, Breeze Copilot, their Content Hub, their AI-powered Content Hub. So if you can start to leverage tools to do the work for you so that when prospects do engage, you can start to leverage your automation tools. It doesn't have to be HubSpot. Whatever you're using for your CRM, try to build some level of automation in how you're talking to your clients, your prospects. One thing we do at home office is we keep track of breadcrumbs. So we take a look at where our prospects are visiting. So if we have a prospect, we start to see a team of customer success professionals visiting customer success pages on our website, engaging with customer success assets. We can put them in some sort of automated, what I'll call a workflow, which really just means a series of pre-planned or preset events where we can then reach out to them talking about the exact topic they're interested in. If you're using ZoomInfo, they have intent topics. You can see what people are visiting. You can set up, I want to know who's visiting for sales training, professional development, customer success, and really track, what people are looking at, what they intend to buy, and then build out some sort of automated communication or engagement strategy so that you can further them down the funnel to the eventual point of having a discovery call with you.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight that discovery call because obviously we're talking to a bunch of sales leaders and salespeople here today. it has changed dramatically the information that we're giving, especially our enterprise reps, but even our local Sandler reps here. It's no longer just like this one person downloaded a white paper or filled out a contact form. It's like there were 300 searches for customer success. They 7 people hit the white paper. There's other intent and keyword information. Can you talk a little bit more about like what this like profile and dossier of information then you can have on the account when you first go to call them?
Yes. And so this is why it's really important to have some sort of CRM so that you can track all of this. You'll want to know as a salesperson, and in account-based marketing, what the entire account is doing, but eventually you're going to have to call specific people. So when you call that person, you're going to want to know things like, what keywords do they search for? Were they looking at your competitors? Were they asking questions about pricing? Are they that far down where they're wondering about pricing? What kind of materials did they look at? Any questions that they ask? And imagine if you have all that information before you get on a call. So now you can prep to, first of all, have maybe any sort of objection handling or competitor type information so that you can immediately differentiate yourself without them even saying the competitor's name. You're already using your own value proposition in advance, talking about the topics, providing additional information already ready to send to them. So you get off the call and you send an email follow-up that has all sorts of relevant information that you discussed. It just makes the buyer feel, or the prospect feel like you've heard them, you understand them, you had the chance to build that rapport and really let the buyer feel like this was a personalized experience for them. It wasn't just a phone call where you went through your sales process bullet by bullet and they were just one of many. You made them feel like you actually viewed them as an individual and an individual customer.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that takes us to the technique bucket here. So there's a ton of tools that we could use. Some of them are appropriate for different size businesses and stuff. But when I think about the tools, tactics, tips, and hacks you could use to help us get started here with ABM, what comes to mind for you?
I mean, I've mentioned them a couple of times. I think if you have something as simple as a Zoom info and HubSpot, it's a great way to start. Get your target list going. De-anonymize your web traffic. However you want to do it, start there. Start to collect that list and collect information or breadcrumbs, as I referred to them in the past. Next, set up a way to create workflows or automation. So I think that's important. You can do that through HubSpot. There are other tools that allow you to do that. In fact, ZoomInfo even has their own automation tools as well. Plenty of tools out there that help you to do that. So I think from a tactics level, you can set up just a high touch campaign. Start with an email, start with social, have a landing page, set up a form. So you have all those 4 components and then start to put it out there, target that audience. It's a little bit more advanced when you think about things like lookalike lists or retargeting or things like that. That's another component of ABM. A little more complex, maybe the 201 class for that one or 301 class. But if you start to think about, for the people who have already seen your brand or shown an interest, how do you keep getting in front of them? And just keep those touch points going. Even if, that first time around, you don't hear back, just keep those touch points one after the other in different channels, a multi-channel approach.
Yeah. And then you mentioned personalizing the sort of marketing and sales experience. And I think that is a dramatic shift from what we've kind of done in the past. I think a lot of companies were trying to standardize everything. Like we want everybody to go through this funnel. They get through this funnel for this product and this person does this sales demo and does this. And especially for larger teams, it makes a ton of sense why people would do that. But our world has kind of changed here recently. And so not only within the accounts being different from one to the other, and maybe there's some different keywords that might resonate with another one, but even inside buying teams, we're seeing that purchasing wants different information than the CEO or different information than the sales or marketing manager. And you can start tracking all of this in the CRM and you can start automating different messages to different groups of people. So I guess the 301 level here that I want to ask you about is how do you personalize and shift like the campaigns that you're sending to different audiences and different people these days?
Right. So, I mean, you can get started small and as you'd like. I mean, you can do it as simple as looking at an industry. Or so when you set up your ideal client profile, you also want to think about your different buyer personas. So you have a baseline of what that looks like in terms of their interests, or you have a baseline on their industry, a baseline on their role, a baseline on their interests. So if you start to piece those things together and group them together, you can reach out to them first at a category level. But the tools that we're seeing now, and especially some of the tools that we just saw, Mike, I know you're there too, at Inbound, are things like HubSpot Copilot. Within your CRM, you can actually see in the sidebar, it'll prompt you to show you more about this contact, what their specific interests are, what they've shown, what they've engaged in, what their company's engaged in, what they're likely to buy. So you can start to really get down to a deep, almost scary level of information that you can then use to reach out. Now, of course, if you're in a small business, you may not have time to do that sort of, scoping out, or maybe that seems too advanced. Just start with small. Start with your different roles, industry. In my presentation at Summit, I went through like different levels of what that segmentation could look like. So whether you're a small business, you just want to focus on a couple things, all the way down to segmenting by specific keywords, or you could really fine tune it. But just start small. That would be my advice. There is, do the little things that you can and start to build confidence and traction before progressing to the next level.
And I guess the last question here on ABM is the results. What are we looking for, and what should we expect from this process?
Well, I can tell you at the enterprise level, we saw some great results. And one of them that was one of the first indicators that this was really attracting better qualified leads is our conversion rates. So we set a goal to reach a certain number in our pipeline. We doubled that before the half of the year. We filled our pipeline at a rate double what we expected. For the leads that marketing provides, we have a conversion rate of about 44%, which is the highest conversion rate across any other lead source. So we can see, preliminary indicators again, but we can see how the leads that we're bringing in not only convert, but they do it faster as well. We're getting them through the funnel faster because in fairness, we're reaching them further down the funnel. So that makes sense, right? You wouldn't expect to go from awareness to purchase, but if we're catching them at decision, it would make sense then to get them into purchase a little bit faster than we've seen. So some great results there. I think that's another thing, just in thinking about tracking this, like track your progress, see what's working, do some testing. I know salespeople, especially if you're on your own, you don't have a lot of time to maybe do all the reporting that would be ideal, but at least look at some key things. What are your conversion rates? Which channels are converting? Take a look at some of those key metrics, if nothing else.
Love that. Once again, we're talking with Kerri Martinek, head of global brand and marketing at Sandler. You can find her presentation from the summit inside of Sandler Online, or you can still purchase the recordings from last year. But we really want you to show up next year in Orlando and join us for the Sandler Summit. Go to sandler.com/summit for more information. Kerri, before you go, I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. At this point in your career, how would you define success?
So I think when I was younger, I viewed success as me being the one to shine. And I think as I've gotten older, I view success as seeing the ones around, see people around me shine, or see people that work on my team shine. I really enjoy, it's one of my favorite things to see the people on my team shine, and quite a few on the marketing team do that, and if not the whole team. So I think success for me is coming to work and just seeing people like really succeed at their jobs, and just to feel that enjoyment, I think is great.
Yeah, that's a great answer, especially if you're a leader and a manager of people. And we've mentioned HubSpot and Inbound many times, but Emily on your team got to shine the biggest I've ever seen it on every possible stage and platform at Inbound this year. It was amazing to see. Now, on the flip side, was there a failure or a lesson learned that you had to get over in order to be successful?
I think, I had to really learn. I think as I was growing my family when I had kids. It was really hard. And I think for a lot of the women out there, it's really hard to jump into that. You had this career for so long, and then maybe you start a family, and it's really hard to get in the groove of that balance. And I think learning how to stay present in whether it's your job or with your kids and how to balance that, that was probably one of the toughest lessons in my career. And I think maybe for dads too, maybe dads these days also struggle too, but I think it's a lot. It's a pivotal time in a career. And I think that was I learned probably the greatest lessons from there.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I don't know what it's like, but I do feel like for everybody in our society, there's more, demands on our time and attention and stuff, and staying present is a huge lesson for everybody. Do you have a favorite quote, motto, or mantra?
I do. So my favorite quote is, and I hope I don't mess it up because this is pressure, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
I like it. All right. Now, is there anything else I should have asked or things that we missed? Final thoughts on ABM?
No, I would just encourage people not to be intimidated by it. It sounds like it's, you needed a lot of money, time, resources. And I think there are some small little components of it that you could just give it a try. Worst case, it doesn't work and you can carry on, but at least give it a shot. I think it'll be helpful.
Time to go for it. And once again, Kerri Martinek, head of global brand. We have a ton of free resources there. You can get yourself into our ABM funnel and see how we do this by just visiting Sandler.com. Check out our free resources, white papers, webinars, as I mentioned, those summit recordings, and join us for the event in Orlando, April 2nd and 3rd of 2025, Sandler.com/summit for more information. Until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. Good luck. Good selling, everybody.